They won't admit it, but secretly, they all know it's broken, and not by a little bit. It's starting to look like it's broken beyond repair. But they can't let it go. It's like an addiction. They know it's wrong, but they just can't stop. What am I talking about? Physics. Cosmology, specifically. Every physicist in the world knows the problems. They are numerous. They are significant. They're fundamentally unresolvable within all the current regimes. As our tools have improved and our measurements refined, the problems have only multiplied and expanded. And then there is the problem of the dark universe. According to the lambda CDM model of cosmology, 95% of the universe is invisible and undetectable by any means. But all of the evidence for dark matter and dark energy is circumstantial. They've never detected dark matter or dark energy directly. They don't even know what it is. The evidence is based on measurements that don't match known physics unless something invisible is added into the formulas. We've seen this exact phenomenon before. A well-meaning scientist makes extremely accurate measurements and calculations, but the results show a discrepancy that can only be accounted for by adding in new invisible things. Then the math mostly works, but the formulas still require fudging with. This is exactly like lambda CDM. The standard model of cosmology has 6 parameters that are fixing variables. They must be adjusted to make the measurements match reality, and they have to do this for each galaxy. But that's not what I'm talking about. The last time we saw this exact thing was in 1859. A very talented and respected mathematician decided to take the most current and accurate measurements of the solar system and then use them to calculate the precession of Mercury's orbit, the slow wobble of its elliptical path around the sun. He accounted for every known planet and their accurately measured masses and orbits. His calculations were meticulous, but his answer was wrong by 43 arcseconds per century. The only way his calculations would match the real-world measurements of Mercury's precessions is if there was some unknown mass that was pulling on Mercury to affect its orbit. But it had to be some sort of mass that was hidden or invisible that he hadn't accounted for. And since he accounted for all the known planets, what idea do you think he decided to support? An unknown planet, of course. The planet Vulcan. This was supposedly a planet that somehow stayed on the other side of the sun from us, hence the reason no one had ever seen it before, and it had just the perfect mass to affect the orbital precession of Mercury, because that's the way they designed the invisible hidden planet. Just perfectly enough to make the measurements work. Well, mostly. The model wasn't as exact as the respected mathematician wanted, or any other astronomer. But for over 50 years, the science community kept looking for something hidden to account for Mercury's anomalous orbital wobble. 56 years later, Einstein develops general relativity. Relativity shows that space is not flat. All of Newton's laws assume space is flat. So when you use rulers and scalars designed for a flat space in a space that isn't flat, like the space where Mercury orbits, guess what? You get a consistent mathematical error. But when Einstein used his formulas, which accounted for space that was not flat, the calculated orbital precession matched the measurements perfectly. The 43 arcsecond difference was because the Newton flat space ruler did not match the curved space geometry of the measurement. What was the reaction of the physics community at large when Einstein made this discovery? They looked at his fancy math and promptly ignored him. Einstein introduced general relativity in 1915. Nobody cared until 1919. That was the year of the solar eclipse. Einstein's formulas predicted the sun would bend the light coming around the corona an exact amount of degrees. And the technology of the day was advanced enough that it would be able to measure if that actually happened to a high degree of precision. The solar eclipse came. the astronomical plates were processed. When the measurements were calculated, they matched Einstein's predictions exactly. Not close, exact. Einstein's formulas, the field equations, are the true description of the underlying system of reality from our living scale to the stellar scale. Newton's laws are a special case of general relativity, the framework that applies to our living scale of reality. Our existence on Earth is in a weak gravity field, and our ability to move fast is limited to far below astronomical speeds. At those limits, Einstein's formulas reduce exactly to Newton's formulas. General relativity encompasses Newton's laws completely, mathematically. Every experiment conducted since then has proven Einstein's formulas exact, without fail. 111 years and not a single refutation. Importantly, the formulas haven't changed. They haven't needed to fudge the numbers to get them to match real-world measurements as our technology has refined and become more accurate. His formulas are perfectly predictive and accurate, and our improved measurements only confirm that to a higher degree of precision within the scale where he placed them originally, unlike the theory of the planet Vulcan. But after 111 years, the technology for taking measurements beyond the solar system and into the universe at large has gotten significantly better. But this is outside the scales that Einstein originally created his formulas to apply. And the measurements at the frontier have been detecting anomalies that cannot be explained by the currently known physics. Very talented and respected scientists have been making measurements that don't make sense unless there is some unknown mass and energy that we are not accounting for. But since the scientists accounted for all the known mass and energy that they could see and measure, there had to be some sort of mass and energy that we could not see, that was invisible or dark to us. And because those who do not understand history make the same mistakes over and over again, what do you think these talented and respected scientists did when they couldn't get their calculations to match the measurements? That's right, they pulled a Vulcan. They invented new mass and energy, but not just any mass and energy. No, they didn't invent mass and energy that hides behind something bigger, like Vulcan hiding behind the sun. They invented dark mass and dark energy, stuff that's invisible. Not just hidden, invisible, really invisible, like not able to be detected under any circumstances, except for the effects we see, effects that have to be caused by stuff we can't see because something has to be causing what we see. So there must be stuff out there that we cannot see. Do you see the problem? This is the planet Vulcan all over again. Scientists make measurements which don't match reality, and the first thing they do is invent new stuff to account for it, instead of questioning the nature of the measurements, instead of questioning the actual scalars, like the Einstein-Newton scalars that accounted for Mercury without needing an entire made-up planet. Here's the part that's really unforgivable to modern physics. Einstein already showed that the first thing to check is wrong rulers. And if you use the right rulers, you can calculate all the stuff that seems anomalous because of measurements made with the wrong scalars. But here's the part that no modern scientist can answer. None, especially physicists. Here it is. Einstein proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that time is not a fixed scalar. Time is a fundamentally flexible variable. It can be stretched and compressed. It only seems like time is fixed because we live at a scale and move at a speed where time changes very little. But it does change. If we go only 130 miles upward into the atmosphere and move fast enough to stay there in orbit, then time moves measurably different than for someone still on the planet's surface. If we didn't account for time variation in GPS, then every smartphone on Earth would be off in GPS location by kilometers every day. Sit next to a massive black hole and time almost stops. travel really fast, and everyone not in the spaceship with you ages at an accelerated pace. Time moves much faster for them. The bottom line, time is flexible, fundamentally across all scales. Not fixed, flexible. And yet, somehow, every time we make measurements and calculations of anything, especially the cosmos, time is a fixed scale that never changes and is the same from the beginning of the Big Bang to the end of, well, the end of time. How exactly does that work? Does time have a manager that tells it how the gig is supposed to be? Hey, time, I got a gig for you. I know you're a flexible guy, but you got to be fixed for this one. Can you do it? Of course not. The problem is structural, but it is also psychological. This is cognitive dissonance at the highest academic scale. Physicists believe in Einstein, but they don't get the time thing at all. They think it only matters when you're next to something massive or moving really fast. But if time is flexible in equations for one part of our universe, what logical rationale says that it should be fixed for equations in any other part of our universe? The answer is nothing. Nothing logical says that time magically transforms from flexible in one equation to rigid in another. So, what happens if you take Einstein at his word and treat time as flexible? Well, the first question is, what determines the flexibility? We know that large mass and velocity affect time, but what else could make time flexible, and what could describe the right way to use time when making cosmic measurements? This is where the dripping faucets enter the story. And programmable handheld calculators from the mid-70s, they're important too. In 1975, a talented and respected scientist was playing with his new high-tech programmable handheld calculator. In 1975, this was cutting-edge technology and expensive. But he kept seeing something odd. He kept noticing that period doubling systems all converged on two structural numbers that controlled how the systems entered a disordered condition he called chaos. This is where the faucet enters the stage. A dripping faucet drips regularly at low speed of water flow, but increase the flow and it drips in pairs. Increase it more, then groups of 4. Then 8, then 16, then chaos. Since then, this period doubling has appeared everywhere, in fields far removed from pure mathematics. Fluid dynamics, electrical circuits, biological populations, chemical reactions. Any nonlinear system with a quadratic turning point follows the same path. And that path is governed by two mathematical constants. Alpha, 2.502907.875, and delta, 4.669201609. These constants are as fundamental as pi. They emerged from the geometry of nonlinear dynamics itself, not from any specific physical system, but from the mathematics of transition, the specifics of how things change as they scale. They are the constants of the architecture within which physical systems operate. Here's what we discovered when we used these two constants and the cascade architecture of emergence they describe to examine the formulas of physics and cosmology. Alpha and delta appear with precision throughout the fundamental constants of physics. All 6 of the cosmological parameters in the lambda CDM model are derived from these two numbers alone, with no fixing variables, no altering of the equations, with nothing but those two numbers and the cascade dynamics that they universally provide. In fact, not only does the cascade model derive all of the parameters of lambda CDM, it calculates the exact amounts that all of the errors from using the wrong rulers create. The cascade system shows that dark matter and dark energy are both Vulcan. And unlike general relativity alone, the cascade system also unifies the quantum world. The cascade system derives all 19 parameters of the standard model of subatomic particles, and it derives the source of the phenomenon commonly called quantum gravity. It encompasses all of the known physics of physical reality from the bottom to the top. We call it super lambda CDM for cosmology and the standard cascade model, SCM, for particle physics. Lambda CDM is Newton. Super lambda CDM is general relativity. And just like with Newton being a mathematical special case of general relativity, lambda CDM is a mathematical special case of super lambda CDM. It's the system at cascade level n equals 0, which is our ground state in the cascade system. And like super lambda CDM does for lambda CDM, SCM can account for all of the problems in the subatomic world of the standard model. The cascade system has a staircase of levels that goes from the Planck scale to the level where the measured discrepancy that is mistaken for dark energy occurs, the outer boundary of the universe. All of the hierarchical problems dissolve. The parameter problem evaporates. In the cascade model, the subatomic search is complete. There is nothing left to find. Super lambda CDM and the standard cascade model of subatomic particles do not replace either lambda CDM or the standard model. They encompass and, more importantly, derive them both from only two mathematical constants and no fixing variables or equation malfeasance. The relationship between the existing frameworks and the new underlying encompassing systems is mathematical, not semantic. And what's been the response from the established science community, especially the physicist and cosmologist? As expected and as before historically, they are ignoring the inconvenience of it all. No one has successfully challenged the math. No one. The universal cascade system, the overall system based on the universality of the Feigenbaum constants and the cascade architecture they provide, is the best and most complete system of cosmology and particle physics ever discovered. And discovered is the right word. The system was not developed from some university research program, nor was it created by some private sector research lab. It was discovered. The definition of discover means to find something unexpected. That is how this happened. And like with most unexpected discoveries, we had no idea where it would lead. We honestly followed the science, and the science revealed the truth. The universe is designed to create novelty, and only two numbers out of all of infinity can create novelty: alpha and delta. All of everything is derived from just those two numbers and the cascade architecture they create. Vulcan survived for 60 years before a new system made it obsolete. Dark matter is right on schedule. Dark matter is Vulcan. Dark energy is Vulcan. Super lambda CDM and SCM are the correct systems that govern our reality. It's not time for an eclipse to convince the established field of physics that the field of physics has changed. It's time for an intervention.